Hi, I'm Tim Tiemann, Managing Director of Innovation Initiatives at C-Suite, Cal State University Northridge, the Nazarian College of Business and Economics. Here today, we're with Olympia LePoint, honored guest, speaker, former NASA engineer. How you doing today?
I am doing well. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Fabulous. So this is sponsored by C-Suite, the Center for Social Technology Entrepreneurship within the David Nazarian College. And C-Suite covers all things entrepreneurship, from the academic to the applied. And our first introduction was through the applied, the I-Corps program. Can you tell me what attracted you to that?
The I-Corps program at Cal State Northridge is one of the best programs I've discovered. And what attracted me to that is my mentor, Shelly Hadvina, who is a part of CSUN alumni, told me about you. And she said, "Do you know about Tim? Do you know about the class that he holds, the I-Corps program?" And I said, no, because I had created not only a well-known award-winning book series, but I had just ventured into technology and creating this type of biometric device. And so Shelly Hadvina said, "Do you know Tim and do you know about the I-Corps program? And let me introduce you." And how I met you and got into the program is through that introduction. And the program was one of the best programs I took as not only an alumni and not only as a lecturer, but also as a business owner, where I learned to be able to really hone in ways to engage the customer and bring in new contracts.
Fabulous. So for the uninitiated, I'll explain. I-Corps is short for Innovation Corps, and it takes you through the business model canvas, but with an eye to resolving practical questions about what your customer really needs, and then how to launch the business in various dimensions. What parts of that were most interesting or necessary to you?
That's a great question. For years, I had the book publishing company, OL Consulting Corporation, and underneath that brand is the Answers Unleashed book brand. But never had I gotten into technology devices. And although I had been writing books and publishing books for years, I had never published books about specifically technology applications and specifically technology devices. And with any type of new development or innovation, there's a new market. And it's a new ability to be able to see what they need. And in this process of going through the I-Corps program, I was able to, number one, understand that different customers need different things. And if we think in our head what they need and we don't actually interview them and find out, oh, you don't need that, what you really need is this, the product and the business and innovation is no good. Because when it comes down to it, we have to be able to serve the customer with a product that is going to be used, that's going to be needed, which they're going to come back to over and over again. And so when I joined the I-Corps and took the program and took the classes, I had a new understanding of a couple of areas. Not only the technology book that I was going to write, but also the ability to understand how to create proposals for investors in the technology market. I didn't know about customer segmentation. I did not know about the hypothesis testing with the statistics specifically regarding to the product. I did not know, for example, if we were applying for federal grants and different opportunities, I didn't know that, for example, the National Science Foundation has a specific process for you to put through seed funding and a specific format for that proposal. And so through these classes, I realized it's a business. It's a business to propose and submit your business. And I never saw it that way ever before until the I-Corps class. And then I started looking at products and innovation and the type of proposals for those products in new ways.
So you have been a dynamo in terms of energy. Everything I threw at you, you just took and ate it up and asked for more.
And you threw a lot.
Well, yeah. Was there any point where you asked yourself, is it worth it?
Oh, yeah. I
Okay.
think every single week.
No, no, no. Yeah, you don't get off. Tell me, was there a low point where you said, either I'm lost or I'm lonely or I've got better things to do with my time? These are all common emotions amongst entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Every single week, I actually ask myself the question, number one, should I do this? And number two, what if I don't?
Let's unpack that last one. So what was driving this?
When I thought, what if I don't? Like, should I do this? I knew yes. But I thought, what if I don't? I'm a spiritual person. Everybody's different. I'm a spiritual person. I pray to God, and that's what I do personally. And I firmly believe that God gives us ideas and innovation and the ability to birth something into this world that's going to help people, whether it is a human being like mothers do, or if it is a book, or if it's a business, if it's cybersecurity, if it is a technology device, or if it's a university or a grant system. We all have something that we're supposed to birth into this world. And when I thought to myself, what if I don't? It was the concept, am I taking the talents in which I've been given and am I using them the way that God wants me to? And that was the defining factor where I realized, all right, I may feel exhausted. I may still be grading tests through my midterm tests. I may still be trying to find out what the next income is going to come from, because when you pitch for your business, it doesn't come immediately. You have to have faith that that income is going to come through with all that hard work you're putting through. So for myself, I had to think, I've been given this talent. Am I going to push through to be able to birth what it is in which has been given to me, or am I just going to let someone else do it? And that answer was, should I, became yes. If anybody, I'm the one to do it. And that was the biggest turning point, where there's a lot of work, there's a lot of research, but we are given an assignment. And this assignment is so powerful. Each one of us has some brilliant idea, and that assignment is what we birth into this world.
So there's a lot of people out there with technical capabilities, in engineering, in whatever. It can be the arts, it can be music, whatever your discipline is, they can be very skilled at it, and they'll be wonderful employees. But there's the resiliency and that impetus that says, no, nobody else can do this, or I'm not being allowed to do this in my current role. So, breaking out of that mold and saying, this is self-expression, right? Entrepreneurship for me is ultimately self-expression, and as you say it, bringing it to life in a procedural fashion that, number one, doesn't burn a lot of cash, hopefully doesn't burn any cash. Number two, ties you into a deep-seated need in the market, your ability to read things. So looking back on yourself, where did you say, I have to give this a voice, this venture, I have to make it happen?
Great question. When the wildfires happened in California,
Tell me more.
I was watching the TV, and exactly 14 miles south of me, everything was burning up. I mean, it was literally a hurricane, and we think of a hurricane coming from the ocean, but really this was a hurricane coming from the desert. And if you can think of hot air when it circles around in a dryer, it has static cling. Well, this hot air was circling around from a desert, and it was lit on fire. And Pacific Palisades. It just went up in fire. And just seeing all of the fire and just knowing that at any moment, everything can change. I remember looking at the news, crying, realizing that some of my high school friends' parents' homes were burning up. I knew that the fire wasn't going to be put out immediately because the winds were so horrific. And the only thing I could do during that time is focus my attention on creating the new book and the new biometric device, because I thought to myself, life is just so fragile. And what are we here to do? And I thought to myself, at any moment, anything can go.
Yep.
And if I'm going to do something and leave a mark on this world, what am I going to do? And that was the deciding moment for me to realize I have to bring this into the world.
That's wonderful. So let's talk about customer interviews, because that was just one of the elements. And again, you come to this with a load of technology expertise. How was it? And you teach, right? So you're used to being in that sort of mode. How was it the first time you were interviewing customers and testing your hypotheses?
Oh, that's such a great question. I was blessed to have my first interviewee being an official at NVIDIA. And if a lot of you guys don't know, NVIDIA is working with California, the state of California, to create a gigantic artificial intelligence literacy initiative. And so I thought to myself, who better else to find out about artificial intelligence than one of the top leading companies that deal with artificial intelligence? And it was NVIDIA. And I was given favor, and I'm sure this executive receives emails from millions, not millions, but like a whole lot of hundreds of people. And he responded to my email and he says, sure, I'd love to meet with you. And I'm like, ah! I was so excited because this is like NVIDIA. This is like huge, right? So I thought to myself, well, what are my questions? What are my questions? And I remember calling one of my dear friends, Justin, shout out to my friend, Justin Phillips. And I said, I have an interview with this one person. And he's like, I want you to find out exactly what they need. Do not talk about anything what you have. I want you to find out what they need. And then your voice kept coming in my head, which is, that's exactly what Tim says. Tim says, find out what the customer needs. And so the opportunity, the first meeting I had was with the NVIDIA official. And in that meeting, I got a chance to find out about what they're doing and how they're looking at not only the AI literacy in schools, but they're also looking at the workforce development. Like how do they make artificial intelligence easy to understand, not just for the techie people, but for people who do not have a computer background? How can you explain it in a way where it makes sense and it's easy to understand and people want to learn about it? And so then I realized there's a need. It's not just NVIDIA that needs a way to be able to talk about what their products do. It's like everyone. This isn't just a need for one major company. It is a need for the entire California. It's a need for the entire United States. And if anything, it's a need for the entire world with how artificial intelligence is moving so fast. And that meeting, which I was originally going to share about the technology device I created, became a listening meeting where I got a chance to understand what are the key concerns, what are the laws coming up, what are the initiatives being placed out by the governor of California, and what are the different, like for example, AB, I think it's 2876. Like what type of laws exist for there to be AI literacy in schools? And so as I was sitting there just talking with him, it was such an eye-opening experience where I realized not only did the technology device that I created, which was going to be a great addition to any type of technology company, but it was also going to be an AI literacy handbook so people could understand what artificial intelligence and biometrics and quantum computing does in the first place. And that was the aha moment where I realized it's not just a standalone if or that or this or that. It's a system of understanding technology in easy to understand ways with books, with manuals, and with devices. So everyone, whether you are 8 years old or 88 years old, can understand technology in an easy way.
So you tapped in early on into an explicit need that was articulated not just by the senior executive, but by a number of others. And, going through all the rest of the process steps along the way. But at the end, you came to me, we had a quick discussion about SBIR grants.
Yes.
And how to tap into funding.
Yes.
So it was taking this, because this is not an academic class. This is applied.
Real life class.
We're here
Real
to do
life.
something. Tell me a little bit about your emotions when we first went through the SBIR process.
I cried.
No, you didn't.
I cried because I went through that long database and I wasn't sure what I was looking at, and that's when I was crying. And then I called you or texted you or what did I email you? And I'm like, wait, what's the difference between STRR and what's the difference between SBIR and small business seed funding? What is this? And so I got a chance to understand that there's a process that the federal government does to be able to give grants to small businesses if they can show a couple of things. Number one, a need by the customer for a product, and that's where we do our interviews to find out, okay, well, do you really need this? And tell me about the customers who do, and can you write a letter showing why you need it? To, okay, what is your business proposal? What is going to be the cost of research and development? And then once you have that research and development, what is the price point? So what are you going to sell these for? What is the market going for? After you recognize what your prototype is, how are you going to go about manufacturing it? Have you thought about all these particular concepts in order for you to execute? And then once you have this product, who's going to buy it? And how often is it going to be sold? These are all the things that has to go into that planning. And if you don't have that planning, you're not seriously looked at through any federal grant process or any type of a large, reputable investment firm who is seriously looking to invest millions of dollars into a particular company product and innovation in which you have created. You have to be able to show them, you have to show them exactly what you plan to do, how you plan to do it, when you plan to do it, who you're going to do it with, and how you're going to hold the money in doing it.
It's one of the best kept secrets. Federal money, phase 1 can be around $1 million, phase 2 can be $2 million plus, and it's grants or contracts. This is non-dilutive capital that you can spend not as you want, but in an approved way, with the way that advances your technology. And I see it being held as the reserve for people at more hardcore research institutions, but I love bringing it here to CSU, because this is where technology meets a whole different segment and need. So I know you're continuing to work on that, but if you want to say anything about how the I-Corps process enabled the SBIR application.
Yes, you actually gave me a link to attend a National Science Foundation seed fund grant writing seminar. And in that seminar, it was around an hour and a half, and it was given by officials at a government agency that showed you exactly how to submit your information and the different phases and the different type of criteria for submission. There's many criteria. For example, there is a strict regulation now that you have to be an American citizen if you apply. And also, once you get the funding, there has to be strict ways in which you can show that you are using it the way that they want it. So it's always an option. It's a lot of work to submit it. And if you do get it, you still have the opportunity to say yay or nay whether or not you want it. But if one group wants it, you better believe there's another group that does. And so I started looking at it that way, like, okay, if the type of federal funding doesn't necessarily exist right now, who else is giving it? And that was my eye-opening moment, like, there's other people that need this too. It's not just one group of people. What organization is looking for this? What investors are looking for this? What group is looking at this? If I could give a prophetic type of message, right now we have a lot of artificial intelligence. We are using artificial intelligence in many ways. You use a thumbprint, for example, to unlock your phone. When you're going through a checkout stand, your face is being scanned with biometrics to know your face structure in facial recognition in accordance to the bank account that you're using to buy your groceries. I mean, it's that serious. And I foresee in the future, and this is unfortunate, but this is true, I see in the future our biometrics will be compromised. Your fingerprint, your voice print, your iris scan, they have the potential to be compromised. And once it gets into the wrong hands, it's not like a PIN code that you can change. And it's not like something like a passcode that you can go in a system and change. Your eye structure, your fingerprint, your voice print is unique to you. And once that gets in the wrong hands, what happens then? So the product that I created helps people keep their identity if and when something like that were to happen. And I'm very thankful for the iCorps program because I got a chance to really sit through and look at that device and figure out why that would be needed, how it could be generated, and who would be interested in manufacturing it once all the science is really flushed out. And it was amazing to be able to see that our biometrics, our artificial intelligence is in everyday circulation. It is from where you go online to search. For example, Google. There was just a story. Google now is collecting information about where you go, what's on your device, for example. So you have what we call a digital identity. That's you, where the sites you usually go, what you usually look up, what type of images you look at online and social media. That's all going into like your digital signature. For example, a lot of people don't know artificial intelligence is used, for example, Boeing, the Boeing Max issue. Artificial intelligence was in the operation of the two plane crashes that killed 346 people. And it was because the pilots didn't even know the AI, which was an MCAS software, was in the system that was operating. And so because the pilots didn't know about the artificial intelligence, they didn't know that they could turn it off. And as a result, we saw 2 plane crashes that grounded the Boeing Max fleet. So this artificial intelligence is important to understand when it's there, when it's not, and what to do and how to turn it off, and how to verify what it's giving you is accurate. Another example is what we saw last July when there was a Falcon sensor that killed the ability for computers to turn on, and we saw a gigantic glitch happening across the world. There was hospitals that shut down, there was gas stations that shut down, there was Amazon that shut down because the Falcon. There was a Falcon cybersecurity sensor with artificial intelligence that was part of the computer that was supposed to boot up that completely just crashed. And for hours, people couldn't use their computers. So these are the things that people have to be aware of when they're using this artificial intelligence. And I realize that there's so many companies right now that are needing to, number one, invest in technology companies. Number two, understand how they can be able to contribute to solutions. And number three, find the innovators like myself who are creating products and books and services so we bring technology into the next realm where it is ethical, where it's safe, and that people will benefit from it in a good way.
So there's a lot to unpack here. We've got the educational component and supported by the technology, the device component.
Yeah.
Now, I also know that you've been an invited speaker coming up, and you found some resonance with it's a spiritually based finance segment. Tell me, what are the needs that they are articulating, and what do you see as how that might be extensible to broader communities?
Great question. One of the contracts that I received in the iCorps program was a contract to deliver a keynote. And this keynote is predicting the future with with quantum computing. Now, a lot of people are like, wait, quantum computing? Wait, I thought you were talking about artificial intelligence. They're two different type of technologies. It's under the branch of what we call emerging technologies. And a lot of people don't know that the reason why we're building artificial intelligence is to feed into a new computer system called quantum computing. And this particular contract, I've been hired as a keynote speaker. And if you've watched my TED Talk before Reprogramming Your Brain to Overcome Fear, you know that I speak on stages and I tell people how to look into the future and how to overcome issues. And so this particular contract, I am going to a group of well-known investors and going to tell them what to expect with the emergence of quantum computing. How do you predict the future with the technology? How do you predict where the technology is going to go? And how can you predict your investments so it has a competitive edge, knowing that quantum computing is right around the corner?
Yeah. So that's fabulous. You know, if you're a well-heeled Wall Street-driven investor, you're opening doors for emerging technologies. But let's say instead, I'm just a CSUN student and I'm graduating, right? Give me a couple bullet points about the things I need to be aware of about AI or quantum computing. How is it going to impact my ability to pay back my student loans and to make a career, right? I'm looking 30, 40 years out, and right now I just see muddy waters. I need some clarity. What does your crystal ball say?
Ooh, crystal ball. Crystal ball. So let's figure this out. Number one, learn the basics of what artificial intelligence does. Learn basic terminology. Like, for example, what is guardrail? What is guardrail? What is that? Guardrail is the ability to have checks and balances within computer systems so it doesn't take all your information. For example, there's a computer system used here on this campus where it has partitions, so all of people's grades and information doesn't go out all into the World Wide Web for everybody to take a look at. So that's what we call a guardrail. Another example is AI ethics. How do you use it where you're not using it against the law? Every single state has a law about how artificial intelligence is used. And then foreign countries have a law about how artificial intelligence is used. You could be using it correctly in California, but then let's say if you have a business partner overseas and they have different biometrics laws, you could be breaking a law from something overseas. And so if you were to fly over to that particular country, you'd be jailed immediately because you simply didn't know what the basic laws of artificial intelligence are. So you have to know the ethical concerns about artificial intelligence. Third thing is you can use it to a point, but you can't expect it to answer every single question for you. For example, I teach and I see when people use artificial intelligence on their tests. And so I say, if I think that you've used it, I'm going to ask you the questions verbally and you're going to have to answer it. Because if you've really done the work, you'll be able to answer it. You won't have to have it typed out. And so when you are going into the real world, you not only have to know the terminology that people use, because what we have BI, which is business intelligence, is when you look at raw data and you look at technology and you merge that together to create a competitive edge with the technology that you use so you can actually create more customers and products with that. Businesses are beginning to use that. And if you don't know that terminology, that's putting you at the bottom of the list of people. And there's literally millions of people who are looking for work right now. And it used to be like the college graduate was at the very top of the list of the people who are being hired. Now they're like midway, almost to the last. So the way in which you would be able to use artificial intelligence in a way is know what the terminology is. Number two, use your human interface skills. Artificial intelligence now, people are using it to create all these massive amounts of resumes and bombard all these people. And so recruiters are not even looking at the resumes anymore. Old school calling up someone on the phone and leaving a voice message. Go on LinkedIn, find out who the people at the business are. Call up the company, ask to be directed to that person. You don't even have to necessarily know the person's telephone number directly. Just be asked to be transferred to leave a voicemail on the person's voicemail. Because human interaction is becoming rare and computer interaction has been people been bombarded with it, you're going to stand out as you talk to people that are human. And the third thing I would recommend is that if you're a new person graduating and like, how is this going to help me? You want to position yourself where people are going to fund. If you are watching this podcast, where's your camera? Is your camera's right there? Okay, so I'm going to look at the camera here for a second. If you are watching this podcast and you are hearing terminology like artificial intelligence and quantum computing, and you want to find a way to be able to help, what I want you to do is go online, find out how your particular skills are that you're graduating with, whether it be kinesiology, whether it be marketing, whether it be communications. I want you to go online and find out how your degree maps into artificial intelligence and be one of the cutting edge people to bring in artificial intelligence ethics so it's used appropriately in that area.
So this follows the arc of your career almost perfectly. Number one, your TED Talk about overcoming fear. Sticking your head in the sand and pretending it's not going to affect you is not a strategy, right? That's ignoring the problem, and that's going to make you a victim. Number two, assuming that you can't learn it, minimizing your own gifts, right? That too says, well, I see the problem, but I'm still going to be a victim because I can't do anything about it. You can. And the things that you have done, the educational initiatives and with the biometric devices, I think is taking it to a broader democratic base that says, you may not have been given this Ivy League degree, but here's a way for you to still take advantage of it in this new world that we're living in. And then kind of wrapping it all up collectively, saying, this is the entrepreneurial spirit, right? You may not have ever used that name before, but it's getting to know the details, getting to know the human aspect. I know we've mentioned in class a number of times, if you want the answer to be no, send an email. If you want the answer to be yes, make a call or get it done in person, right? People are still interacting with other people. And the ability for people to stand out is not only that. In my own past, interns were a dime a dozen, right? Coming up and saying, oh, I can do this one thing for you. That's great. Somebody who has started a company, however, didn't even have to be a successful company, but you saw the opportunity, you took the initiative, you drew resources together. Well, now that's a person who can help me grow my business.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what I was always looking for. So let's talk a little bit more about the biometric device and where we go from here without disclosing any intellectual property. Where do you see the next step for that?
The next step is figuring out the code.
Okay.
Our biometrics are things like your iris scans. For example, you have mountains and peaks in your eyes, and a computer will identify what these mountains and peaks are with the high-powered zooming technology. But it's not always accurate. If you have gained weight or you have contact lenses that you've been wearing for a long time that has microscopic scratches on the eye, or you have medication for high blood pressure, your eyes are going to change and the biometrics are not going to be reading correctly. Or let's say that you're going through facial recognition and there's a template made of your biometric, and then that capture method didn't have the proper lighting. So, for example, if you're a darker skin and there's not the proper lighting, the template that's matching to your face doesn't have the correct mathematics to it, so you're misidentified, thinking that you're someone that you're not. Or let's say you have a voice recognition and you're calling up a major bank trying to get your money out of the investments, and because you gave a sample where you had food caught in your throat, or you just drank milk, or you had more phlegm than normal, your voice may have sounded different, so that the voice capture may have incorrectly captured your information and put it to the wrong template. What happens when you try and go back and you're misidentified? What do you do? How can you prove you are who you are? That's where my device comes in. My device uses artificial intelligence and the math from quantum computing to identify who you are by not just those characteristics. There's going to be a time in which in the future that biometrics is going to be hacked, or the templates are not going to be correct, or what we call there's reverse engineering, where people have the template and they map it back to who it originally belonged to and start cloning people's information. When that happens, we're going to need some sort of alternative method to ensure who you are is really who you say you are. And the next part of my particular research is creating the code for you to be able to say, yes, this is me.
Sounds perfect. I'm also curious about the training sets for the LLMs today and their ability to hallucinate or to discriminate, show bias. Any comments on that? Is that a problem that we've solved, or is that going to be an emerging problem?
Good question. Artificial intelligence is a computer system that allows computers to make decisions as if they were humans. So computers can do several things. They can look at large amounts of patterns of data and come up with a classification for it. It can predict things that are coming out, and it can also make decisions. And there's three types of artificial intelligence that we're used to. We've been used to traditional artificial intelligence, like banking systems, that fraud detection. It tells you, oh, your card has just been used in New York and you're in Los Angeles. We're shutting down the card. That's an example of traditional artificial intelligence that we've used in a very long time. Cybersecurity is one. When you go online and search on Google, that's another, where there's all this information that comes up and there needs to be artificial intelligence to sort through the information really quickly. That's the traditional artificial intelligence. Then there's artificial intelligence called predictive modeling. So this predictive modeling is something that identifies, let's say, when a hurricane is coming, if it's going to hit Tampa or Tallahassee. That type of artificial intelligence that takes the data of the wind patterns to the direction of the wind flow and to the heat of the water and the height of the water, that takes all that information and identifies it with a pattern on what more than likely is going to happen in the next 24 hours. That's an example of predictive modeling. Also, it could be used in a negative way too. For example, judges use artificial intelligence to determine if they should put someone in jail for 6 months or 10 months, depending on the crime. And we're seeing that that's not effective prediction methods in some cases, depending on the data that goes into the model. And then we're now seeing generative AI, which is the type of artificial intelligence that you can take sound, text, and images and combine them together and create what we call synthetic media, which is something that you think is actually true, but it's not, that can create deep fake, fraudulent stuff. So all of this is based on four things: the data that goes into it, the algorithm that is created to analyze it, testing out the algorithm in a real life case to make sure it works, and four, using it in the real world. If any one of those 4 areas malfunction, your AI goes just haywire, and it will give you wrong results. If the data is wrong, if there's data that goes into it that doesn't represent women, doesn't represent people of all ages, doesn't represent the actual type of phenomenon that happens. Like, for example, if you're creating a car algorithm, a self-driving car, and if you try and use data just from a video game and you don't try and use data from people driving in real life, you'll have crashes. So your data has to be good. Second thing is if your algorithm is not good, you'll have haywire. For example, if you create an algorithm that will be able to give people information or loans based on their credit score, but then you have, or jobs, or let's say they give people the opportunity to interview for certain jobs on the resumes that are pulled out from the queue, the algorithm is not going to work if the algorithm of the AI, if it doesn't include women, let's say, in the database for a technology job, even though there hasn't been women before in the past who have applied, if the algorithm doesn't purposely search for women as well as men, that is what we call AI bias, where it is a mathematical coding issue because the data within the system itself is biased because it doesn't have the full representation of the population. And bias in statistical terms means your data is not good. And then third, if you test it out, if you test it on the wrong type of situations, it's not going to work. So you can have artificial intelligence and it runs really well. For example, the well-known news that Boeing's MCAS software, it was tested, and that test showed the MCAS software didn't know how to balance the heavy plane with a heavy load. And when it was tested on a lighter plane, like a jet plane that could move quicker, that had less weight to the engines and not 300 and 400 people on the plane, that MCAS software worked well for a fighter pilot. But if you are going to put it on a commercial plane, you need to test it and test it and test it and test it to make sure it's going to work okay. But if it's not in the testing, you have plane crashes. So, and then the fourth way is if you put it in the real world and you find out it's not working, you don't update it, there's something wrong. For example, there's a lot of self-driving cars where we've been seeing crashes. I won't even name the type of car it is, 'cause I think everybody knows what it is. I don't even know. I'm not going to name it. I know you know what I'm saying. All right. But there's a whole lot of cars that have some crashes to it. See, it's been deployed in the real world and they're finding out it's not working. So that's when you take it back and you change the algorithm so it works. But if you don't understand how these 4 systems work, and so in these 4 systems is what we call machine learning. It's basically the mathematics that predicts what's going to happen. All it is math. Machine learning uses statistics and probability and weights to be able to determine which more unlikely is going to happen versus what's not. So that's statistics and probability. And then there's large language models. All large language models do is take the math and translate it into English or whatever language it is that you need in order to solve the problem. So a large language model will take your voice and say, oh, how many companies are giving grants to biotech devices? So a large language model will take in your type or take in your voice and you put it into a system. And then that large language model translates it into mathematics, where the machine learning will then use the mathematics to be able to go through all the data, pull it out, and then the large language model takes that result and spits it back out to you in English or French or German or Spanish or whatever language that you're dealing with, or a robot that says the answer is this. All the large language model does is communicate what the math has just said.
Yeah.
So when you look at it like that, all they do is do a function, which is get you a result. And the question is your result accurate or not? If we do not have people who will look into the AI and ensure it's operating correctly in all these 4 different ways with the data, with the algorithm, with the test, and how it's actually applied in the real world. If we do not have human beings, humans, not computers, humans looking at this artificial intelligence and making sure it works correctly, meaning you have to be AI literate. If you don't have humans doing this, we're going to have artificial intelligence that are going to be hurting humans in the future. And my goal is for that not to happen, because people need to know how AI works with AI literacy. So all 4 of those areas will actually help people, not hurt them.
I'm going to echo that point again.
I got passionate there.
No, as you should, because look, sounding the alarm, there's 2 parts of this. Number one, this can be used against you. This audience has social agency, right? You have the ability, but you have to get up and say, I may have been incorrectly lumped with some people for higher or lower credit scores, and so I'm paying higher rates or lower rates. Let's make sure it's accurate. My medical insurance could have been thrown out because I was incorrectly thrown into one group, and it was never touched by a human being who could actually read and say, well, that doesn't make sense. What's going on here? And then we talk about, okay, so that's just using it defensively, using your social agency defensively. And then we say there's also a great opportunity here, right? If you understand the tools, this is a great time to be a young, career-driven person, because you can change the way the world is going to work and make it not just efficient, but sensitive, more productive. I think that's where we're going with this. And then the last bit, I'll look at the camera too. When you hear Olympia talk, you hear her consistently talking in terms of what is the problem. She's not taking a solution and forcing it on people. She's first understanding them, where they live, and then thinking, okay, what sort of solution would work for this? Going back and iterating again and again. There is typically a rush to solve the problem before people fully appreciate all the dimensions of the problem. And what she has done consistently well is understanding the human element, why they prefer one thing over another, and that, whether you're doing a lemonade stand or a high-tech device or anything in between, is the essence of entrepreneurship. So let's talk about more fun things.
Thank you.
What do you do on your time off?
Oh, do you know what? That's a good question.
Do you have time off?
I love writing. I'm a very, very, in addition to being very technical and very scientific, where I like facts and I like proving things, people are surprised I'm extremely spiritual. Extremely spiritual. I pray. One of the things I love doing is praying. I love praying. I love praying for people, for miracles to come into their life. And it sounds like it's the opposite of being technical, but actually it's to me the same, because you have reality, which is the 3rd dimension, and you also have a solution that exists in the higher dimension. And if you can actually see a solution that exists in the higher dimension, you can start to figure out what are the technical things to actually birth that solution into reality. And that's what I love doing. I love actually praying and figuring out, for me, I ask, what is God seeing? What am I not seeing? What is God seeing that concerns God that I may not be aware of? And for me personally, that was what I enjoy doing. Because if I can understand how God thinks, and for me, how I look at God is a person that loves everybody. People think that God doesn't like this person. That is not I think that's a lie. I believe God loves everybody. And I believe that we all have a choice, whatever faith that we choose to have, that is the way that we express our appreciation to the Creator. People may not even feel that way, but that's okay. That's their choice. We have free will. And I truly believe in respecting people and figuring out the way that they see things, the way that I see things, the way that God more than likely see things, and then figuring out a way that the intersection of all of those. And the intersection of all of those is where you have innovation. So I am a person that does spiritual lectures on miracles and things like that, and in addition to the science stuff, and I love seeing into the future. A lot of people call that prophetic a gifting. I call it public speaking, where I get a chance to actually just tell you what it is I'm seeing. Just take the woo-woo out of it. It's just like, this is tangibly what's going to happen. And this is, if you look down the line, we look at this, and this, and that's going to tell us what's going to happen. And so I just like looking at things in a very practical way and seeing how we can contribute to the future that we want.
Yeah.
And so what I do in my spare time is I spend time really analyzing scripture, understanding how different societies have expanded versus collapsed. Understand human psychology for why people go for certain things versus why they don't, or what type of experiences that they had in the past has made them make decisions that are not the best versus decisions that are the best for them. For me, I'm fascinated how people make decisions. I'm fascinated about all of that, and I think I just drink it up.
There's a great quote from Abraham Lincoln where he says, "I do not like that man. I must spend more time with him." Because he's saying, in effect, we are more than a single dimension. Economists will tell you, rational, evaluative, maximizing man, that's a model, but that separates us from all the other things that make us fully human, whether it's the art, music, taste, preferences, all those things. So another one, either favorite meal or favorite restaurant.
Oh my God, that's a good one. Okay. The way to my heart is through duck.
Ooh.
Orange duck.
Go on. All right.
Orange duck. There's 2 places in LA that make the best duck. I was trying to say what they are. They're like two, I won't say what they are, but they're 2 French restaurants. One makes, oh gosh, it's so good. It's like duck à l'orange. One used to make a half duck with a duck à l'orange before the pandemic, but they had the different cooks that came in after the pandemic, so they make a duck breast with a raspberry sauce. But the duck is still good. But my thing is like the orange duck à l'orange.
Beautiful.
That's me. And if I have duck or barbecue, I'm not like a sweet person. I don't eat sweets. And I will eat barbecue. Give me some good barbecue.
Carolina barbecue.
Actually,
Kansas City barbecue.
Brazilian barbecue.
Tell me some more
Brazilian
about
barbecue. I like Brazilian barbecue with fresh grilled vegetables. The lamb. There's like a Brazilian barbecue lamb with a great yogurt garlic sauce. I think I'm making myself hungry.
Okay. So here you are, this polished, erudite woman who has seen career success one after the other. And there's a lot of people who say, well, that's not me. Tell me something about you, an embarrassing story or something fun from your early 20s.
Oh my early 20s?
Yeah. Or tell me something that says like, oh, I know the person in the mirror and there's all these other things.
Oh my
about
gosh.
them.
Well, do you know what? People think that when people find out that I came from like rocket science and I helped launch 28 NASA spatial missions, which is impressive, they're surprised I grew up in South Central LA. So I grew up off of 55th and Hoover in the middle of South Central LA. in the 1980s. And in the 1980s, there was a crack epidemic. And I talk about this in my TED Talk, Reprogramming Your Brain to Overcome Fear, which is when we came home, we not only had to get off the school bus, we had to wear black because if you wore any type of color, you were more than likely going to be shot by a gang member on Initiation Fridays. So you wore only black. We went home. We lived in poverty. We did not have anything. We had food stamps. And I remember there was one time we had $5 in food stamps. We had to make it last for a week. And so we bought red beans and rice and we made that last. And there was times in which I had to figure out what was I going to do, buy toilet tissue or paper for school. I mean, it was literally that tough. And so when people say, oh, it's like you can only do well if you have been given a good environment, or when people go, oh, all these cuts and everything else with affirmative action, you can't do anything. It may seem like that in first. But when it really comes down to it, when you're designed to do something on this earth, and when you have a calling on your life, you have to realize that no matter what you go through, you can get whatever it is that you're supposed to do done. And for me, getting my education was what I had to get done. And that's the reason why I'm a part-time professor and lecturer. It's because I want to see other people educated so they change their life situations. Because once you become educated, you have the information to do your own research, to change your own situation. So people always think, oh, well, yeah, I can't become a business owner because, I don't have any money, but you have talent. You have time. You have a computer. You have social media. You have your friend who is willing to be able to put something online for your class. All you have to do is figure out what you have and then use it. And by making the decision to use it, bam, a miracle happens where all your resources start multiplying because you're choosing to step out on faith to get something done. That's my take on that.
I 100% agree. That is not to minimize the challenges that exist today, right?
It's huge.
It's huge. And you can always point to the people who started off life on third base. Great, but there's always going to be a difference, and if you can take your talents and your time and focus on this next thing. It doesn't have to be launching space shuttles, right? We'll get to that in time, but let's get out. Let's finish high school. Let's apply to college. Let's get the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But I think that speaks to the resiliency for which you have a deep, deep reserve. Yeah. And it's one of the things that I find most appealing about you and your whole story.
Thank you. There's a lot of challenges. There's more challenges today than I ever thought we would receive. And especially just if you watch the news, we've all been watching the news. And it's very hard to watch. And I realized this, there's always a way. There's always a way. You may not see it. You don't know it exists. But for me, I had to pray for it. And show me the door. Show me the door to walk through. And for me, when I was 15, the door for me to walk through was science. That was my way. Everybody has a door that they got to walk through. And everyone has something that they're going to walk through. You got to ask to see it. And then once you see it, or even before you see it, you got to be around people who are willing to point you to it. It's a whole different thing if you stay in the environment that is very frustrating. You have to seek out a new environment, new people, where you find out the way. the way in which you don't know, the way in which you've never seen, but yet a way where you can walk through another door and experiencing something else.
So you have a variety of opportunities, people clamoring for your time, clamoring for your attention, and yet you continue to invest in CSUN.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? What is, without painting with too broad of a brush, what is it about the CSUN student that you find appealing or attractive?
They're just like me.
Tell me more.
I came to CSUN when I was 16 years old. I graduated early, and I had the opportunity to come to CSUN, and I could have caught the bus 2 hours each way from South Central Los Angeles to come to campus, or I could live in the dorms and go to school. And I chose to live in the dorms, and it was a little bit more expensive. And I had to work for it. It's not something, education isn't something that's just handed to you, and especially at CSUN, you work for it. There's schools out there where, there's some well-known schools out there where you get in because of who you know, or you get in because of what your parents have with funding, or your really high grades. CSUN, you get in because you're willing to work. And you're willing to not only work, you're willing to master whatever it is that you do. And when I got when I went into the real world and I saw the real world, I found out that CSUN was at the highest of the selection pools. With literally, when I was in aerospace, CSUN was top up there with USC, with Virginia Tech, with MIT, with Caltech, and there was one other one, at Purdue. It was one other college, at USC, and I remember thinking to myself, CSUN? And they're like, yeah, we really like we really truly like the students from CSUN because they're top notch. Mm. And I was working in aerospace, finding out that people from Cal State Northridge have the reputation of getting the job done and doing it well. And it gave me like, oh, I graduated from CSUN. Like, oh, yeah. And so the reason why I consistently come back to CSUN to teach, and we all know teaching is not a glorified profession, and you have to have a side business in teaching. And the reason why I always come back to CSUN is because they're students just like me. The people that had to work to where they are. And once they work and find out what they do, they become masters at what they do. Hmm. And if I can contribute to that, if I can contribute my knowledge, my expertise, my understanding, my experiences, so they can walk through the door that's for them, then I fulfilled my calling with the area of teaching.
This has been wonderful, the time that you've given us, the information you've disclosed to us, the stories that you've told, and the examples that you've provided. I have found it inspirational, and I know our audience will as well. Is there anything else you'd like to share with them?
Oh, yes. This is a message I'd like to share with the audience. And where's your camera? Your camera's right over here? Okay. In the next few years, you're going to experience technology in a way that you have never seen it before. I always want you to remember this message. There's a place for you in it. And as technology continues, I want you to find the ways that you can help guide it so it is safe for people to use.
Olympia, there's going to be some people who want to follow you. Is there any socials where they can see what's next, or how do they actually get the book?
Oh, great. You can find me online. You can go to OlympiaLePoint.com and AnswersUnleashed.com. And if you want to purchase a book, you can go to OlympiaLePoint.com/books or AnswersUnleashed.com/books. I'm online under Olympia LePoint and on YouTube under Answers Unleashed.
that's it, people. You go out there, get the books, track her. There's more great things. She's had a wonderful career, and it's just beginning of the trajectory. So thanks for everything.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.